afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Agriconnect series, Aqua, our premiere episode focused on boosting tilapia production from rootstock to disease control. We are honored to have you with us today as we explore critical topics that shape the future of agriculture. My name is Tom Alvarez, and I am pleased to serve as your host for this session. Before we begin, we invite you to take a closer look at what the Agriconnect series is all about. Let's watch this brief introduction.
Food sustains life. And as innovators in the food and agriculture industry, our role transcends mere planting, harvesting, and farming. It's about nourishing generations and securing sustenance for all. Today, we confront various challenges impacting farm productivity. As global food demand rises, we struggle to match production, hindered by livestock productivity issues. Our solution? Utopia. Maximizing farm efficiency. Produce more with less effort. Let us drive significant change through integration and collaboration. Connect with industry experts, innovators, and more. Innovation fuels the agriculture, aquaculture, and livestock industry. Let's come together under one banner at Agriconnect. Strengthening the community and reaching your peak performance through livestock expertise. Let us shape a brighter, more resilient future for the agriculture, aquaculture, and livestock industry.
Utopia is our vision for optimizing aquaculture, where we focus on improving farm efficiency and sustainability. Aboitiz Foods, through our Pilmico and Gold Coin brands, play a key role in this, offering precise nutrition programs, enhanced immunity solutions, and a focus on the health of young aquatic species. These tools help commercial farms enhance production efficiency and support the goal of feeding a growing Asia. By launching this series, we show our commitment to fostering progress in aquaculture through integration and collaboration. Today, we begin connecting with industry experts, innovators, and others to work together toward this shared vision. But first things first, this webinar is an exclusive event and may include confidential and proprietary information belonging to Pilmico, Gold Coin, and the respective industry experts. Please refrain from disclosing, disseminating, or otherwise making available any confidential information to individuals outside of the seminar. For your convenience, we have provided meeting links with subtitles in Vietnamese and Mandarin for the speaker presentations. Live translation will be available during the host's segments and Q&A portion. You can visit info.aboitizfoods.com/agriconnect, scroll to the footer and find a select language section, confirm a strong internet connection, device compatibility, and updated software. Test your audio and video, mute when not speaking, and keep your camera on if possible to stay engaged. If you have any questions or concerns during the webinar, please feel free to use the chat box on your preferred meeting link, and our team will be monitoring the chat and addressing your queries. As we dive into the event, please keep these safety tips in mind. Report any safety concerns through our chat box and follow local health guidelines. Make sure you know where the nearest fire exits are. Inform us of any accessibility needs and listen to your staff for directions on crowd movement. Avoid crowded areas. Stay hydrated, take regular breaks, and keep fire exits and equipment unobstructed. Now that we've covered the technical reminders and safety protocols, let's dive into our aquaculture event. To officially commence today's program, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our opening remarks speaker, Mr. Eric Nojak, Business CEO of Agribusiness Aboitiz Foods. Let us all extend our attention as we welcome Mr. Eric to formally open today's session.
Good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to the second season of Agriconnect. Agriconnect was designed with one clear purpose: to support you, our customers, by providing timely, practical insights that help drive better performance on your farms. As part of our commitment at Aboitiz Foods, we continue to find new ways to deliver value by connecting you with leading experts, global perspectives, and actionable knowledge you can apply directly to your operations. This year, we put the spotlight on aquaculture with a special focus on boosting tilapia production from broodstock to disease control best practices. We recognize that farming conditions are constantly evolving and innovation has never been more important. Through this series, we aim to work alongside you to build stronger, more resilient, and more profitable farms. Keeping our customer at the centers of everything we do is our way of doing business. Whether you are a long-term partner who has grown with us through the years or a new customer beginning your journey, this platform is for you. A space to learn, exchange experiences, and explore new possibilities. Through initiatives like Agriconnect, we are committed to equipping you with the tools, knowledge, and partnership needed to achieve peak performance and sustainable success. Thank you once again for your trust. We look forward to another season of learning, sharing, and succeeding together. Enjoy today's session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eric, for setting the tone and reminding us the importance of collaboration, learning, and customer partnership. And now we are pleased to introduce our distinguished speakers who will be leading today's learning session. First, we have Mr. Sheng Lee, Managing Partner at AquaFarms Advisors LLP, Singapore. He will be sharing his insights on effective disease management and biosecurity best practices in tilapia farming. Joining him is Dr. Rajesh Joshi, Senior Researcher at GenoMar Genetics Group, Norway. He will present on GenoMar tilapia, driving farm profitability with disease-resistant, high-performance fingerlings. And finally, Dr. Wen Surachetpong, Associate Professor at Ksetsart University in Thailand, who will be discussing ultrasonography application to achieve premier breeding performance of tilapia breeders. Without further ado, let us begin our program by focusing on effective disease management, biosecurity, and best practices in tilapia farming. We are honored to have with us Mr. Sheng Lee, who will be sharing his valuable insights on this important topic. A respected industry expert with 18 years of experience in the aquaculture industry, a Bachelor of Science degree in Pharmaceutical Science, and as Managing Partner of AquaFarms Advisors LLP, Singapore. Mr. Lee brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to this session. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Sheng Lee.
Good day, everyone. Thank you for attending this session. My name is Sheng. I'm based in Singapore. Just a quick introduction about myself. I've been dealing with tilapia industry for close to 18 years. I started my time in tilapia with a global animal health company, dealing with development of fish vaccines. So during my time in R&D, I managed to successfully develop 3 tilapia vaccines that was being currently used in the market now. Shortly after that, I moved on to a global technical and commercial role in the same company, and that's where I started supporting fish farms in Africa, Latin America, and Asia to deploy biosecurity measures, vaccination protocols, and disease management. And then after that, I left the company and then moved on to the shrimp industry for a year. before we started our own advisory company for aquaculture, which is AquaFarms Advisors. So thank you very much to GoCon and Puminco for inviting me to talk about biosecurity of tilapia management, and then to how to effectively manage tilapia diseases. Firstly, let's look at the diseases that we find in tilapia. In this chart, you see that it's broken up into the different phases of farming, from the hatchery all the way to the grow-out, across different sizes of fish. For tilapia, typically we can see that parasites or fungus are impacting them in the early stage of production. And then the dotted line means that as the sizes of the fish grow up, it's less prevalent. Next is streptococcuses, mainly caused by strep species and Lactococcus garviae. Again, you see the broken lines over here. It means that when the fish are younger, during the stage of production, they are less prevalent to this disease. But as the fish grows up, it becomes more prevalent, and streptococcuses is actually a very commercially devastating disease in tilapia culture. Next one, we can see Francisella. So Francisella is a relatively cold water disease. Again, it's more prevalent during the early stage of culture, and then later on, it's not so much of a problem. The other bacteria is Flavobacterium columnare, as well as Edwardsiella tarda. Similar to Francisella, they are more prevalent in the early stages and not so much in the later stage. Aeromonas species is triggered by multiple species of Aeromonosis. For example, Aeromonas hydrophila, Aeromonas veroni, to name some of them. Typically, Aeromonosis is more opportunistic, and then they typically don't affect the fish if, let's say, the conditions are good, water quality is good. But if, let's say, water quality deteriorates, the fish are at high densities, they are immunocompromised, then it becomes a problem later on. One recently emerging viral diseases is ISKNV. It's a type of virus. So we can see that in certain markets, this virus is popping up in tilapia culture. It is also typically affecting fish below 200 grams. And then it can cause acute losses in early stage. But as the fish grows up to larger sizes, it's less of a problem. The last viral disease that we have over here is tilapia virus. So I think a lot of people involving in tilapia farming, you are very familiar with this. Back in 2014, 2016, 2019, this virus is making a big wave in the industry, where there's a lot of prediction that the global economy for tilapia will be negatively affected. It kills small fish very fast and at very large numbers. But luckily in recent years, things have tapered down a fair bit, so the impact is not so much. But fortunately, tilapia farmers are still able to produce fish despite the big scare of tilapia lake virus many years ago. Let's quickly go through some of the tilapia diseases with their clinical signs. So for common tilapia parasites that we see in the industry, the more common one are ciliates caused by itch and trichodina. And these are some of the pictures that you can see over here. For itch, right, you can actually visibly see with your naked eye the white spots on the fish body or on the fins and tails. Whereas for trichodina, you have to view this under the microscope when you do a skin scrape or a gill clip. And then you can see all these circular wheel-like microorganisms under the microscope. Next is the more common one is monogenes, which are Gyrodactylus and Dactylogyrids. So this again, they are worm parasites that you can see them actually on the skin, the tail, the fins, as well as the gills. So when you get parasitic infestation in fish, here are some common recommendations. You either do a saltwater bath, or formalin bath, or potassium permanganate, as well as hydrogen peroxide. So these are just some recommendations that you can implement to treat the fish if you are seeing high level of parasitic infestation. Next one is fungal diseases. So the more commonly seen fungal disease in tilapia farming is this mold called Saprolinea. So you can see on the pictures over here, the fish actually gets all these cotton wool-like lesions on the body. There is no effective known treatment for Saprolinea. Previously, people are using malachite green, but this is a bad chemical, is banned in the industry, so we should not use this anymore. But apart from that, there are farmers who are also using formalin, equifervin dips to try to mitigate the damage. So varying levels of success. But ultimately, this disease is triggered by rough handling when you're transferring or stocking fish from point A to point B. Then you trigger some surface injury, and that led the fungus to infect the fish. So the best way is actually to be gentle when you're doing grading, you're doing fish transfer, and that will actually minimize the impact of the fungal disease of tilapia. Next, let's cover a little bit about bacterial diseases, which are mainly the problem that we see in tilapia farming. The first one is Streptococcus. It's caused by predominantly Strep A galactiae and Strep igniae. To some extent, Lactococcus garviae can be found in certain markets that are causing this disease as well. So if you do a gram stain of this bacteria, they are gram-positive cocci. And then in the fish, you can see this typical clinical sign where they are pop eyes, or they are having a curved spine, whereby they are spinning during their swimming. So Streptococcus actually is a neurological disease, and that's why it creates all these clinical signs that you can see. Francisella is typically a low temperature disease. It's more prevalent when the water temperature drops below 27, 26. If the water temperature is high, this bacteria doesn't proliferate, and then it's not a problem. So what this bacteria do is it's an intracellular bacteria, and it causes granulomas in the spleen and kidney. So you can see all these white nodules here. They are actually full of the Francisella bacteria embedded within the nodules. The next disease is Combinariasis. So for this, the agent causing it is Flavobacterium combinari. So it typically causes rotting of the fin, the gills, and the skin. Over here, you can see the pictures, all this erosion of the body and the tails, some whitish erosion on the gills and the body. So for Combinariasis, it's actually a very easy disease to mitigate against. Just by increasing a little bit of salinity, up to 3 or 5 ppt of salt, then you will actually keep this bacteria at bay because they don't like the salt. So in freshwater systems, if you are able to increase salt content, then you will be able to prevent against this disease. Below here, we have Aeromonosis. It's caused by Aeromonas species. And we typically know this as a motile hemorrhagic septicemia disease. So in fish, you can see these classical signs whereby they are hemorrhagic on the body, on the fins. Over here, you can see them. So these are caused by Aeromonas. But bear in mind is that these septicemia observations are also being found in other diseases, which we will cover later. So end of the day, to correctly diagnose the disease, it's always best to send a sample to the lab to do a bacteriological or a PCR test to verify the cause of disease. Edwardsielosis is the next one. It's similar to Francisella, where it's also intracellular bacteria. It will trigger all these fine nodules or granulomas in the spleen and the kidney as well. It can also cause septicemia. As I mentioned just now for Aeromonosis, you can see that both Edwardsella as well as Aeromonosis also cause body septicemia. Next, we look at viruses in tilapia. So for the ISKNV iridovirus, you can see that many times the fish has a bloated belly with ascites fluid, and then at times you can see pop eyes. So pop eyes clinical sign is also found in Streptococcuses, so be careful about misdiagnosing them due to from the clinical observation. And typically for ISKNV, the fish will be lethargic, they will turn very dark, and then they will always be floating near to the surface of the water. So these are very clinical signs about the iridovirus. And when you do a necropsy, you can see that the internal spleen is very much grossly enlarged. So these are clinical signs of iridovirus. Lastly, we talk about tilapia virus. So recently, I see that TLV outbreaks in Singapore. We can see that the fish are grouping near the surface of the water, facing the corners of the enclosure, and then they are not really moving much. And then we can see typically the ocular eye damage. And then we can see that for TLV, there are also scale protrusion, and then also hemorrhagic operculum and the fins. So these are some clinical signs that you can identify for tilapia virus. Just to cover a little bit about the geographical distribution of different tilapia diseases that I've seen in my years in this industry. In Asia, we can see that pretty much Streptococcus is almost everywhere. And there are official reports of tilapia virus in certain countries. And then ISKNV is found in only a limited number of countries, namely Indonesia. There may be other countries that also see ISKNV, but probably is not reported. And then when we see over here in Philippines, there are also Pseudomonas bacteria affecting the fish. And then when we look in Vietnam, Awasieda is also prevalent. And when we look at Bangladesh, Enterococcus is also prevalent. So you can see that different countries actually have different spread of the diseases. Next is Middle East and Africa. So again, strep, TLV, ISKNV, they can be found. The unique thing to note is for Saudi Arabia, we can see vibriosis, probably because there are some saline tilapia being farmed. All right. And then for Zimbabwe, we can see Lactococcus gaviae is present. And for Egypt, right, Lactococcus gaviae, Enterococcus, and Awasieda tada are also present. When we come to Latin America, PLV is prevalent in some of countries, and then the rest are predominantly strep. For Brazil, which has increased tremendously in their farming of tilapia over the past 5 years. They actually have a good mix of all the known tilapia diseases of TLV, ISKNV, strep Ehrlichia 1A, strep Ehrlichia serotype 1B, serotype 3, Streptococcus ine, Francisella, and Awasieda tada. So it's challenging in Brazil. But a good thing about the Brazil market is that vaccination has been widely implemented, and so the farmers are able to mitigate against this risk and are very successful in the farming procedures. So let's talk about biosecurity risk management, which is very important for tilapia farming. I will not go too much in depth, but just cover some very high-level measures that we can apply at the farm. The first one is basically water management. So water is definitely the primary disease access point for pathogens. We need to consider the water source. Does it come from groundwater, surface water? It comes from the lakes or from the river. Depending on the source of water, you need to consider the different treatment and disinfection protocols. If it's groundwater, typically these are the best water quality. And then minimal treatment or disinfection needs to take place. But if let's say you are using water from river sources and the location of your farm is really near the exit, the river mouth, then that will probably be a bad quality water. Then more treatment and disinfection needs to take place. If you are farming in the lake where it's an open water source, then of course there's no way for you to treat the water. Then you have to really depends on the water quality that it is, because there's no way to treat an open body of water. Depending on the size of the pond, the tanks, or your net cage, you need to understand the stocking density versus the carrying capacity of your enclosure. Do not overstock your fish, because that would trigger bad water quality very fast, and then that would actually foul the water. Even if you are farming in open systems like this, in open net cage, although there is a big volume of water, but if let's say there is a fouling of the nets, that would actually lock in the water quantity, and then it will also trigger water quality issues. So for farming in open lakes, there need to be periodical washing of the nets, or even changing of the nets so that you don't impede the water exchange due to biofouling of the nets. We also do not want to overfeed the fish, because if you're overfeeding them, excess feed settles down in the bottom, they get decomposition, and then that would also trigger water fouling. So depending on the farming systems that you are using, you need to consider the water exchange, and you need to consider if there are sufficient nitrification and denitrification cycle, so that you are actually able to manage the ammonia, nitrite levels. So we have to keep in mind that high organic concentration in the water will definitely be a predisposing factor that triggers primarily parasitic outbreaks as well as bacterial outbreaks. So we will always want to try to maintain the water quality with oxygen levels above 4 ppm, and then ammonia, which is the ionized form, which is the more toxic one, to be less than 0.5 ppm. And then nitrite with the I, NO2, is the very toxic form. It's best to keep them always at 0 ppm. And for nitrate, which is less toxic, it's also ideal to maintain them below 40. Any higher of nitrate levels, it do not kill the fish, but it will trigger stress. It will cause the fish to lose their appetite, and then it will impede on performance of the fish. Next, quickly, is about broodstock management. It's always ideal to buy fish from a supplier who has undergone genetic selection for tilapia against resistance and growth. So in this way, you can be sure that the fish that you procure, they're actually of a better breed and of a better performance. And then for hatchery operations that is managing their broodstock well, they will typically tag their fish and then avoid inbreeding, because if you are consistently having your new generations pairing and mating with your parents, that will trigger inbreeding a long time, and then that will cause the future fish generation to have a performance declination. One important thing to note is for tilapia broodstock, they can be asymptomatic against diseases because they are big, they are healthy, they are strong. So you don't see them showing any signs of disease, but they may be carriers. So the risk over here is that there are known reports that diseases such as ice canary virus, streptococcus, and even tilapia virus have been reported to be able to be transmitted by the parent broodstocks through the eggs into the fries and larvae. So this is a disease risk for transmission. And then it's always best that if there are vaccines available, try to protect your broodstock population against these diseases by implementing vaccination. In that way, you will know that your broodstock fish, they won't be carriers, because there is active immunity that can overcome the disease infection, and then that will prevent the transmission to the eggs and fries later on. Regarding hatchery management, in the industry, there are predominantly two categories. One is the traditional mouth brooding hatcheries, and the other one is hatcheries where implement artificial incubation. So what are the differences? That for the traditional mouth brooding hatcheries, they typically operate in open ponds and tanks. And then the results actually is highly dependent on the environmental and water quality. So in this system, right, the female broodstock, they will hold the eggs in their mouth. They will gargle them so that they incubate them. And then they will allow the eggs to develop naturally into the egg yolk sac, and then eventually until the fry finish consuming the nutrients in the yolk sac, and then they swim out of their mouth to look for their own feed. So during this process, right, the female will hold the eggs in their mouth for up to 14 days. And during this period, the fish will not be feeding. So this is actually a pretty stressful event for the female broodstock, is because they are under starvation mode for up to a good 2 weeks. So between the 3rd to 14 days, right, the fish will develop and then they will release out from the mouth. So the disadvantage of this process is that there is a wide distribution of fry formation, is because due to the uneven distribution of the development of the eggs. So for this traditional process is typically survival of the fittest, because the hatching rate, the survival rate, and plus cannibalism of the fries, they all take place. And then, you typically do not have a very high harvest numbers from this protocol. And because these fish are being exposed to the open systems, there will always be risk of diseases. And for the young fish, the larvae and the swim-ups, they are immunologically incompetent. They will be very highly susceptible to diseases. So when we talk about the traditional mouth brooding hatcheries, typically we do not see any percent of yield higher than 70%, but typically ranging between 50 to 70%. If we talk about the artificial incubation hatcheries, they are using all these external incubation jar systems, whereby they control the temperature of the water, they control the water quality, they perform disinfection of the water before introducing to the jars. So these are under very good control environment. What they want to do is they want predictability in the operations, and then they want minimal disease exposure risk to infect and kill the young population. They also can carry out egg disinfection to clean off the eggs, to prevent any disease introduction into the systems. So because of the highly controlled environmental parameters, they are able to control the hatching rates of most part of the eggs within a window of 2 to 3 days. And if let's say most of the eggs are being developed within a short cycle of 2 to 3 days, then there's more uniformity in terms of the fries and fingerlings that you can grow from this kind of systems. Regarding broodstocks and the fries and larvae, next we want to talk about all-male stock. So in tilapia farming, we all know that if we stock all meal population into the grow-out, we can see more size uniformity, we can see better performance. This is because we want to avoid reproduction in your production systems, meaning to say that if there is a mixed population of male and female in the system, in the tanks or your cages, then the fish will naturally undergo mating, and that actually expands their energy. And then typically the female population will be of a smaller size, the male population will be of a larger size, and then that would trigger very big size disparity. And then a long time there will be competition for food, for resources, and then with a larger size distribution, you would actually have a poorer performance. So what we want to do with all male stock is that we want to ensure that probably 95% or even 99% of the population are actually all males, so that we can reduce the size distribution so that a bigger proportion of them are males, and then we can get better size uniformity. So this will actually help in better production performance of tilapia farming. Another best practice is also talking about grading of the fish. So if let's say the fish are being graded early in the hatchery and nursery, that will actually weed out the poorer performing population. With this, we are able to ensure that the good quality fish are being released into the grow-out stages. They will get better size uniformity, and then with that, you will know that there will be less aggression and cannibalism, because most of the fish are roughly in the same similar size range. So grading is also helpful, whereby it is giving you a chance to remove the weak population, the deformed and the injured fish, because if you continue holding this weaker population in your cages or your ponds, these weaker population are the ones that will always fall down to diseases fast. And then they would be the ones that are transmitting the diseases actively in your system. So if you perform grading a long time, this is a bad practice, because you want to weed out the weaker ones, which are the slow growers. Next, about nutrition and diet. Nutrition is key to everything, because if let's say you are a fish, you are an animal, if you don't get to eat, you have nutritional deficiency, you actually are immunocompromised, because your physiological functions are lacking in certain nutrients, and then they cannot perform their required purposes. All right. So we know that nutrition deficiency leads to physiological stress, compromised performance. So over here, I mentioned that GoCoin provides a very good tilapia feed, and coincidentally, we are also supplying the GoCoin feed in Singapore. So definitely, I can attest that fish feed nutrition is very important. Some daily husbandry observations that the farm needs to embark on a daily basis is they need to eyeball the fish to see if there's any swimming abnormalities, if they are feeding well, if you can see any external lesions on the fish body, or if there's any mortality. So if you can see that the fish are swimming erratically, they're darting around, they're scraping near the corners of the cages or the ponds, this will be indicative that there might be parasitic infestation on them. That's why they are feeling all the discomfort on the body. So then you can know that take a few fish out, probably perform a screening, looking under the microscope to see if you can see any visible parasites on the fish. If there are, you can rectify them. Previously, we shared about using formalin bath, potassium permanganate dips. So there are some measures you can do to minimize distress. So similarly, if let's say the fish are not eating well, it can be indicative of environmental stresses, water quality issues, or even diseases as well. So please check on that. And then if you see physical lesions on the fish, it can be indicative that there probably will be injury. It can be due to manipulation of handling of the fish, grading, for example, and it can also be diseases. So depending on the disease, if it's a bacterial disease, then you can of course treat them using antibiotics, but use them responsibly, because you do not want to trigger antimicrobial resistance in the environment if there is irresponsible use of antimicrobials. Next, I want to touch on is in my time spent in this industry, not only for tilapia, but across different finfish species, I always see that or hear farmers telling me that the treatment is not effective, the fish are not recovering, fish are still dying, and then probably there's a resistance in the environment, or the pathogens have gained resistance. But is this true? We don't know, but a lot of times we have to really think about all these factors. If we talk about treatment through the feed, in-feed treatment, top coating of the active ingredient onto feed, we have to consider that are the fish still eating? Because if let's say the fish are severely under stress or they are very in the very late stage of disease infestation, then they will not be feeding well. So if they're not feeding well, then of course, if you were to introduce a treatment through oral application, the fish cannot consume the feed, so they will not get the treatment. Next is a lot of times farmers do not know how much fish is in the water because there's no proper recording even from a start during stocking. Do you stock 10,000 fish in your enclosure, or do you stock 20,000 or 10,000 fish in there? Do you know the actual numbers? And a long time, when fish are there's mortality, do you pick up the fish? Do you record the number of fish that died over the course of your production cycle to know how much fish remains inside? Because end of the day, when we want to do treatment to the population, using antimicrobials or even using anti-parasitic bath treatment, we need to know typically the total biomass or the average body weight of the fish. If this information are less than accurate, then that would probably lead to underdosing or undertreatment, and then of course that leads to ineffective treatment. The other thing is also treatment regime and frequency. There are farms whereby I encountered they can do antibiotic treatment to the population. By the second or the third day, they see that, oh, the fish are recovering well, then I can stop. So they actually stop the treatment protocol, and then they didn't continue on for the next 7 to 10 days. So this is not recommended. It's because if you start to use antibiotic, you need to complete the whole dose of treatment. If you only stop when you already see improvement, then that's where the bacteria may come back and hit the fish again, and that's where you also get ineffective treatment and disease resistance occur in the environment. So treatment regime, you really have to follow through the treatment cycle. It's the same as human antibiotics. If the doctors tell us to take the drug for 7 days, we have to complete it no matter what. Even if we feel better, we have to complete the full 7 days. It's the same concept. Next is the active ingredient content in the product that you are using. So a lot of times there are different types of products available in the industry in your local markets. You have to really read the label claims and the active ingredient content. But having said that, also be very careful about the claims. It's because in my personal experience, like we were doing a formalin bath for skin fluke treatment, and then we are using supposedly 37% formalin. So with the farm, they are purchasing this 37% formalin from the local shop, and then we were doing the treatment. After the course of the formalin dip, we were expecting to see the leeches on the body to turn pale, to be dead, and then we should be able to scrape them off easily. And also in the bath, in the formalin bath, we should expect to see dead leeches in the bottom of the tanks after the treatment. So we perform the treatment. After that, when the fish are being harvested and put back into the cages, we see that the leeches are still there. The leeches are still alive. So it's like, what's happening? Then I went to the bath and then go near. I don't smell any signs of formalin. I went back to the product. I opened the cap. I took a light sniff. I don't smell anything. So apparently the product that claims to be 37%, but probably it was largely diluted off, and then it doesn't have the active ingredient to perform the treatment. So again, be very careful about what you buy and then validate this depending on the outcomes. It may not be that it's not happening or the treatment is not effective, but it's just that the product is inferior and it doesn't allow you to achieve what you want to do. And how you prepare the medication feeds, in the latest slide, I will talk a little bit more about that. And then also importantly is we need to conduct an antibiogram to test for resistance of the bacteria against the drug that we are trying to use. All right, so these are all very important due diligence that you need to perform. Over here are some pitfalls of feed preparation. So at farms, we see commonly farmers are using the dry mixing method. So you're actually transferring the antibiotics into the dry feed pellet, you mix them around. Over here, you can see that typically, due to gravitational settling, the feed powder will settle to the bottom. If let's say you are using oil coating to bind the raw ingredients to the feed pellets, then that will actually trigger a very uneven accumulation of the drug onto the pellets at the bottom, while the rest are actually not evenly coated. So for me personally, I would not recommend this dry mixing method, but I would actually more prefer the wet mixing, whereby we transfer the drug powder into the oil, give it a good stir, ensure there are no visible clumps of the powder to form a slurry. Next, then I will pour the slurry into the feed to have a good mix. And then in this way, we can get a more uniform distribution of the drug on the feed. So I will personally recommend the wet mixing method over the dry mixing method. And then another pitfall is how you actually treat the fish. So if let's say we look on the right corner, using this scenario, we need to use 192 grams of antibiotics. And then to give a 3% feeding rate, we need to give 72 kilograms of feed per day. So which means that we actually need to prepare 72 kilograms of feed every single day for the next 7 or 10 days to treat the fish population. So what some farms would do is that to prepare feed coating on 72 kilos of feed is quite a fair bit of feed volume. So they may want to take a shortcut whereby they only prepare 20 kilograms of the medicated feed and they mix this into the balanced 52 kilograms of clean feed. And then they give it a good mix around. So if you can see over here in the diagram, it's actually very efficient distribution of the medicated pellets among the entire population. Imagine if you were to feed them to fish, then not all fish will actually get the medication and not all fish will get the treatment. Some farms also try to practice this two-step feeding protocol whereby in a similar scenario, they feed the first 20 kilograms of medication feed. To them, they feel that if this is a concern, then let me just feed all the medicated feed to the population first. But what they probably overlook is that in a fish population, there will be the aggressive population, there will be the main body, and there will be the weaker ones. So when you transfer the whole bulk of medicated feed into the population, then the aggressive ones will probably consume most of the feed, and then the main body will then take some of the medicated feed, while the weaker ones will almost have no chance to take the medication. Next, then you top up with the naive feed, the clean feed, which is the balance of 52 kilo. Now, when you try to feed them, the big fish has already eaten all the medication feed, they will go down and go away. Then next is then the main body and the weaker fish that then comes out to eat. So if you use this kind of protocol to treat your population, of course, you don't get effective treatment because you are not ensuring that 100% of population actually receive the proper treatment. So try not to do this. If you need to do all this in-feed treatment, you have to prepare 100% of your feed, and then you have to give 100% of the medicated feed to your entire population over the course of the next 7 to 10 days. It's also very important to remove any sick or dead fish out from your enclosure because tilapia are known to be cannibalistic. Any dead fish, they will bite, especially at the abdomen area, and then they will consume the internal organs. The internal organs are the ones that are actually very high concentration of bacteria and viruses. So when they consume them, they will eat the pathogens into their system, and then they will be getting sick the next day. So try to, as good as possible, remove any sick and dead fish and remove them properly. The gold standard to dispose of the carcasses is via burning or composting. There are farms who actually bury them into the water. Not very ideal is because, bury them on the ground. Because if you bury them on the ground, then if let's say there's rainfall coming in, it might seep into the groundwater, it might seep back into the waterways. So you are actually recycling in a way the pathogens back into the water systems. So best to try to burn them or compost them. Vaccination is definitely the gold standard. Currently in the world of aquaculture, only the salmon industry is almost 100% using vaccines to prevent against diseases. So we need to see more of this being implemented in tilapia. There are commercial vaccines available by different suppliers. There may also be autogenous vaccines available for tilapia fish. So what we want to do is it's definitely better to protect fish against diseases rather than treatment. Because if we talk about antimicrobial treatment, it's a function of biomass in terms of the dosage to use. When the fish grows in size, when they go to 500 grams, 800 grams, then the amount of drug to be used is actually at a higher quantity. So that would actually incur higher costs. So always try to implement vaccination as the best practice to prevent diseases so that it's more cost efficient. And if let's say the industry starts to embrace vaccination, there will be better herd immunity. And then herd immunity will actually cause disease pressure to reduce over time in the environment. And that will actually improve the productivity of tilapia farming. The last few slides is I just want to touch on seasonal effects of tilapia diseases. So we saw in the previous slides about the different tilapia diseases. But one thing to take note of is during summertime, When water temperature is higher, Streptococcus is definitely more prevalent, and it will cause more damage to your farms. We also know that Aeromonas, Avicida, and Ferrobacterium are always present during the warmer waters between 26 to 24 degrees. And tilapia virus will also hit the fish when the waters are warmer. In countries or markets whereby they encounter seasonalities in terms of winter season, we can see that these markets will be predisposed to Francisella infection. ISKMV is also now prevalent in LATAM, especially during the winter season. So in LATAM countries like Mexico, Honduras, Brazil, they actually see ISKMV outbreaks for up to 4 to 5 months per year due to this drop in water temperature. And the fungal infection subpolinia occurs when temperatures decline below 26. For some reason, if the water temperature is higher than 26, the fungal infection does not take place. One interesting thing to share is that despite seasonalities, but Indonesia, which is a tropical country, do not have a winter season. But in Lake Toba, it's because it's high altitude at 900 meters above sea level, where the water temperature is always 24 to 28 degrees C all year round. So unfortunately for tilapia farmers in Lake Toba, they always see Francisella, ISKMV, Streptococcus all year round. Yeah, so this is a very challenging condition for Lake Toba. So to summarize, it is important to implement basic water quality management because the water is a source of disease transmission because we are farming fish, which are aquatic species. We also need to implement basic biosecurity protocols into your husbandry processes because all these steps will actually ensure that the fish are healthier, they are stronger, and you can mitigate against diseases. Then we also want to take care of the broodstock because this will actually give you good quality juveniles to start the farming cycle. Some broodstock management can be genetic selection, introducing an all-male population, performing grading, and giving them the best nutrition that you can, because all this will collectively improve the tilapia performance. On a daily basis, it's also very important to observe the fish behavior so that you can identify the problems, implement the correct measures to mitigate against this, and to limit your losses. So lastly, again, it's a gold standard to implement vaccination. In the world of tilapia farming now, apart from Brazil, the other markets, the adoption rate of tilapia vaccination is actually very, very low. So if farms can slowly embrace vaccines, and then it would actually improve on the biosecurity measures, it will actually give you higher productivity. With this, I've come to the end of the presentation. Thank you everyone for your attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Our floor is open for your questions. Please submit your questions through the chat function. Yes, you may submit your questions through the chat function right now. Hello, Mr. Lee. Now, question, sir, how often should we do the grading? How is the grading process implemented to minimize stress and mortality?
If you're talking about the frequency of grading, I would suggest that the first grading typically should start in the hatchery. If there is a process of sex reversal being implemented, I would say that once you complete the hormone treatment for sex reversal, that would be your first grading to weed out the weaker populations. Do not keep the weak ones because those will be the bad performing ones. Then once the fish grows to probably 2-inch or 3-inch, I would say that that would be a good time to do a second round of grading before you then stock them into your grow ponds or cages. As to how to minimize the stress of grading, it's always good that you perform grading during the early morning. Water temperature is lower because when the temperature is hot in the sunny afternoon, then it's quite stressful for the fish when you move them around. So best practice is always to do grading in the early morning when the water temperature, the environmental temperature is cooler. Also, before you handle the fish, one day before, you need to actually stop feeding for at least 24 hours because you don't want the fish to be fed one day prior, whereby they would be probably still have food in their gut systems under digestion, so that will also trigger more stress. And then the next thing that I would suggest is the graders that you are using to grade the fish by size. Commercially, there are bar graders, there are handheld fabricated graders from Thailand that are very good, where it's like a bowl with very smooth circular holes. So important to note is to minimize damage or injury to the fish during grading process. The grader bowls or the grader device that you use, they must be smooth so that when the fish pass through the pores or the holes, they don't actually get the injury, and then they will minimize stress and losses during the process. So this would be some of my suggestions for grading.
Okay, we got another question over here. For tilapia culture, considering common diseases, which types of vaccines are recommended to significantly reduce mortality?
Okay, this is a very interesting question. If you were to ask me, I would say that you need to vaccinate against all known diseases out there, because every single disease, every single pathogen will wipe out your crop. But unfortunately, matter of fact is at this moment for tilapia, not all the different pathogens there is an effective vaccine available or commercially available in the market. So the rule of thumb would be whatever is available, be it a commercial vaccines, be it autonomous vaccines, whatever that is available that can help you minimize losses, I would say that try it. Of course, there's no guarantee that it would work because it depends on the supplier of the product. So end of the day, it's also a due diligence by the farmers to really try it. Do not fear against trying new things, because without trying, we will always be status quo or we will be going back. But if let's say somebody is offering a new solution, I would say be the first one to sign up to try it, and then if it works, you can turn things around. So what's there to lose, right? So I would say that whatever solution is available on the market, it would be best to try it and then try to protect against the diseases.
And Mr. Lee, follow up to the vaccines. Regarding the vaccines, how do farmers use it, and what brands are available in Southeast Asia and the Philippines in general?
At least based on my knowledge, we are talking about Philippines. Unfortunately, there is no global animal health companies who has registered their products in Philippines. I'm not sure if locally in Philippines would there be autogenous vaccines being developed by the institutes or universities. I'm sorry, because I'm truly not very familiar with the autogenous market in Philippines. But outside of Philippines, within Southeast Asia, the global companies like MSD Animal Health, which was my company, there are vaccines for tilapia being registered in different countries. And then also there is a new player, Verbec. I know that they are active in Indonesia now. They are also active in Malaysia. Yeah, so Verbec also supplies tilapia strep vaccines. Other than that, there would definitely be universities and institutes who are developing autogenous vaccines for different pathogens like Aeromonas, like Streptococcus ineae. So I would suggest that best to talk to your local government agencies, your fisheries department, to check with them if there is any available solution, and then try to work with them to come up and implement solutions locally available.
Here goes something coming in from Vietnam. If the salinity is above 22% and there is appearance of bulging disease, how do we treat and prevent it?
You mean the salinity is above 22 ppt of salt? So
Yep.
I will assume that you are referring to saline tilapia and not the freshwater one. If you see the dominant area bulging, it can be indicative of a disease. If it is a disease, you have to identify if it's a bacterial or viral diseases. So the best would be taking a sample of it, sending it to a lab test to do a diagnosis. If the findings is a bacterial cause or nature, then probably you can implement a dose of antibiotics to treat the fish. But if it's a viral nature, then unfortunately there won't be any solution against that. The best thing would be to quickly remove fish exhibiting the clinical signs of the bulging belly, and then properly dispose them as fast as possible, because you want to limit the spread of the sick fish to the other healthy population. So any fish that is that you see that you can remove as fast as possible, it's advisable to remove them. And then I think that's the only way that you can do about it. But once you find out the cause of the disease through a lab test, then you know the nature of it. Again, back to vaccines. If there are vaccine solutions available, then potentially not for this crop, but probably for the next stocking, you may want to consider implementing a vaccination program to avoid you facing this same problem again in future.
There's another question coming off Vietnam as well. At salinity of 3 to 5 ppt, how much biomass of tilapia per M3 is suitable and has few diseases per cubic meter?
So the question for stocking density, I would say that it largely depends on your farming system. If you are farming in enclosed ponds or tank systems where your body of water is fixed without water exchange, then I would say that try not to exceed 15 kilograms of fish per cubic meter of water. That would probably be your max capacity. But of course, if you are doing a flow through whereby water is coming in and the water is being diluted out, then you can probably push the stocking density to between 15 to 20 kilograms per cubic meter of water. But if you are talking about you are farming in open cage in a lake using floating nets, then of course the water is freely passing through. Then probably for those kind of systems, you can stock between 20 to 25 kilograms per cubic meter of water. But again, like just now where I shared in my presentation, even in open open net cages, be very careful about net fouling, because if you don't do your routine of cleaning the nets or changing the nets, then please do not go to the 20 or 25 kilo mark, because when the fish grow, the biomass will increase, and then that will actually cause a lot of problems. But rule of thumb is, I would say, for enclosed water body, between 10 to 15 kilograms is a very safe level, and then for open net cages, you can push all the way to 20 to 25.
According to the farming stage, from 0.1 gram to 1 kilogram, at which stages are fish most susceptible to diseases? And what are those diseases? The diagnosis, the treatment, and prevention solutions for it.
Okay, if you remember the very first slide where I shared the graph of the different diseases, when I talked about from 0.1, which is in the hatchery, the early swim-ups, the diseases that are prevalent, let's start off with, I won't talk about the parasites because that you would already know about treatment protocols, but I will talk about the bacteria and the viruses. So in terms of a virus that can wipe out the fish in the very early stage, I would say from 0.1 all the way to 100 to 150 grams, you will be potentially facing the viral diseases of ISKNV, which is the infectious spleen and kidney necrosis virus. You may face tilapia virus. If you are hit by this type of viral diseases, unfortunately, the losses can be huge. They can be up to 50% minimum and as high as 90 or total wipeout. So viral diseases in young populations are very sensitive. Apart from the viral diseases, you will also be susceptible to Francisella, because Franciscellosis, the ones under cooler water temperatures that cause the white granulomas and nodules, this would potentially take away 20% of your population. For Franciscellosis, it's an intracellular disease that is manifesting itself in the fish very slowly. There can be antibiotics to treat it, but typically when you see the fish getting sick, it's too late because the pathogen has already manifest itself in the fish. So antibiotic treatment is actually not recommended because it's already too late to save them. Unfortunately, it is what it is. So again, vaccines would be best to prevent against these three diseases I just mentioned in the early stage: Francisella, iridovirus, tilapia virus. When the fish grows from, let's say, 20 grams all the way to 1 kilo or even 1.2, 1.5 kilograms, then this actually is the critical stage for Streptococcus. So predominantly in tilapia farming in Southeast Asia, we always see Streptococcus agalactiae and Streptococcus ine being the predominant strep types that are killing fish. So for the fish going to the bigger stage, of course, they will be more precious. You have already put in a lot of feed in the fish. You have put in a lot of time to culture and grow them. So if the fish starts to die, you lose all your investment in them, right? So for this, then of course, the way to prevent all these losses in the bigger size fish would be using the appropriate strep vaccines. One point to note is Streptococcus, like I mentioned, can be caused by Strep agalactiae and ine. Under Strep agalactiae, there are three predominant serotypes killing tilapia fish, which is the agalactiae serotype 1A, serotype 1B, serotype 3. Unfortunately, these three serotypes are independent. By vaccinating fish against serotype 1A, you do not get cross protection against 1B or 3. So meaning to say that depending on the disease that you encounter in your farm, you have to really identify the causative agent. You have to select the right vaccine to use it to effectively protect against your crop. So that would be the main diseases that we always see. Lastly, when the fish are in the really late stage of growth, let's say 700 grams and beyond, that's where opportunistic Aeromonas will come in. Aeromonas have very virulent strains in the environment, but most of the times they are truly opportunistic. When water quality turns bad, then they will be out to play, and then they will start to cause infection and stress in fish. So for Aeromonas, if your cage has, let's say, 10,000 fish, there are only 5 grams or 10 grams each, your biomass is low. But if, let's say, you now have 8,000 fish at 800 grams in the same cage, then your biomass escalates significantly. And when your biomass escalates, that's where your water quality deteriorates. And that's where then these Aeromonas will be opportunistically coming into play to kill or cause stress in the fish. So for Aeromonas, I know that there is no known vaccines available in the market, but then you can use antibiotics to treat them if you see skin lesions. Yeah, again, when you start to use antibiotics, do not use it as a prevention treatment. Have to be using it responsibly to prevent antimicrobial resistance in both your fish and in the environment.
Okay, last two questions, sir. Here goes one of those from our participants from the Philippines. After grading, is it beneficial to stock fast-growing individuals of similar size together in the same cage or in the same pond?
The purpose of grading is truly to segregate them by size, so that after grading, you probably have 3 categories of fish, or at least 2 categories of fish. I mean, if you have 3, then you probably have the larger size one, the medium size one, and the smaller size one. If there's only 2 categories, then it's definitely just the bigger and the smaller one. So after you perform grading, do not put them back together again, because you are defeating the purpose. So once you grade them into their different size cohort, it is best to transfer them and stock them into a segregated enclosure, and then continue growing them and culturing them from there on. Because when the fish population in a single enclosure, they're all in largely uniform size, there will be less aggression. When you give them feed, most of the fish will be able to compete equally to get the food that they need, and then they would be able to grow in similar terms. And then when they grow in similar terms, then at the point of harvest, you will probably have a very uniform batch of production that you can sell at a good price. But if you have a mixed population, you have a lot of size disparity when you harvest the population. If let's say you only have 40% of the big size ones that fetch a good price in the market, while the remaining 60% are the medium or small size one that really commands a lower price premium, then you will have a problem on your cash flow. So after grading, definitely only stock the similar size cohorts in the same enclosure.
All right, we have a lot of questions that came in, and here goes the last one, though. From an environmental and economic perspective, what are the advantages or disadvantages of converting former shrimp ponds for black tilapia culture, based on your experience?
Okay, I think probably the question comes because shrimp prices has dropped significantly over the last 3-4 years, and farmers are thinking of converting them to tilapia farming. So I think that's natural. The issue is shrimps are, I would suppose that these are the marine species, Vaname or tiger monodon. So which means that your water source is probably saline water. And then when you talk about black tilapia, I would assume that you are talking about the Mozambique tilapia that is saline tolerant. So based on my understanding of this question background, then I would say that the challenge to convert them into Mozambique tilapia farming, the economic disadvantage would be that the Mozambique tilapia are slightly slower growing, which means that at 12 months of culture, you probably only would get a maximum of, I would say, roughly 600 grams fish to be harvested, which are relatively small size compared to the freshwater cousins of the now tilapia. So which means that after a long farming cycle, the market value of the fish, of the crop that you harvest from a Mozambique culture would be low in biomass, which means that you will command a lower value. So in that sense, I would say that this would be a economic challenge, because definitely this will not give you the returns that you were previously getting for shrimp farming. Yeah. But then, of course, the advantage would be you can do a crop rotation, meaning to say that if let's say you are farming shrimp for one cycle, then you convert them into tilapia farming for another cycle, then you are able to do this crop rotation. And crop rotation is really good because whatever disease that you face in shrimp, you will not get in tilapia. And then whatever disease that you get in tilapia, they will not affect the shrimp. So by doing this rotation, you are able to ensure that the ponds are in a very healthy ecological environment and condition. And then you would probably have a good harvest for both your shrimps and your tilapia if you do this rotation. But just bear in mind that probably then shrimp will make you money, but the tilapia would not make you so much money. Alternatively is truly to explore the more saline tolerance tilapia strains that can grow faster. There are this type of breeds available in the market. So if you are able to get supply of this saline tolerant tilapia that can grow faster, then probably then that will give you a better economic advantage. Yep. Apart from this, I don't think there is any other significant disadvantage apart from if you are referring to Mozambique, then the growth is slow, the FCR is rather high, and then the dollar value will be lower. Yeah, that's about it.
Welcome back, everyone. We appreciate your continued participation. Yes, we're going to make way now for the next part of our program. We now move forward to our next topic, GenoMar tilapia, driving farm profitability with disease-resistant high-performance fingerlings. To lead us through this discussion, we are pleased to welcome Dr. Rajesh Joshi, Senior Researcher at GenoMar Genetics Group in Norway. Dr. Joshi brings extensive experience in product planning and the implementation of various breeding activities across GenoMar's nucleus and multiplication facilities in both the Philippines and Brazil. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Rajesh Joshi.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to present about GenoMar tilapia, driving farm profitability with disease-resistant, high-performance fingerlings. And I'm Rajesh Joshi, and currently I'm working as a senior researcher at GenoMar Genetics, Norway. So this is my presentation for today. So I will start briefly with the presentation about GenoMar Genetics Group. Then my presentation will focus on answering 3 questions on why we generally encounter from the farmers or different partners in our value chain. So the first question is, why do we have different products? So this is the product strategy. And then another question I will answer is, why to use genetically superior fingerlings? Does it make sense? Is it profitable? So why to use genetically superior fingerlings? And then the last question will be, why to buy latest generation of fingerlings? And then I will conclude with few ongoing R&D projects in GenoMar, and then the final conclusion slide. So let me talk about GenoMar Genetics Group. I assume that everyone here present in this presentation knows about GenoMar. So if you don't know about GenoMar, so GenoMar is an international breeding and distribution company. So what we do is aquaculture breeding and distribution. We are present in multiple countries in the world. So we have our R&D office and head office in Norway, as you can see in the slide here, I have pointed here. And then we have a breeding nucleus where we do our R&D. 2 breeding nucleus. So for the Asia, we have breeding nucleus in the Philippines, and for the Latin American market, we have breeding nucleus in the Brazil. And then we sell the commercial fingerlings directly to the farmers. So that we have hatcheries in 5 different countries. So we have hatchery in 2 places in the Philippines. We have hatchery in 2 places in Vietnam. We have one of the hatchery in Malaysia in the Asian market. Similarly, for the South African or Latin American market, we have multiple hatcheries in Brazil, and we have 1 hatchery in Colombia. So we are present in 3 different continents. Our, as I said, head office and R&D office is in Norway, where I am located, and we have our hatcheries in 5 different countries where you can get your fingerlings from. And the commercial fingerlings. So the commercial fingerlings come through the hatcheries, but in the total value chain, we go much above those 2 levels. So if I start at the top here, so we have a breeding nucleus. So it's the population of tilapia, or GenoMar population of tilapia, which is located in the biosecure environment. So we do most of our R&D in these facilities, or in this group of fish. So the breeding nucleus is here, and we call it the genetic selection. So we improve the performance of our fish here every generation. And then if we need to create a product, then we go through this multiplication phase. So we don't create the product from each generation. So because a generation of fish can produce the fingerlings for 2 or 3 years. So every 2 or 3 years, we create a new generation of breeders. So what happens is we select the few best great-grandparents from the breeding nucleus. Then we systematically mate them to create the grandparents. Again, these grandparents groups are systematically mated to create the breeders or the parents. And these breeders, the small breeders, are then shipped to the hatcheries. And the hatcheries grow these parents and mate them systematically to create the commercial fingerlings. So these commercial fingerlings are then sold to farmers in different forms, like fries, fingerlings, and juveniles. So theoretically speaking, so one female from our breeding nucleus or one great-grandparent can produce around 6.86 billion commercial fingerlings. So that's why we call this multiplication phase. So this is what, and then what we do is we are present. So we are responsible. So from in the breeding nucleus also, in the multiplication facilities also, until the hatchery level. So from the hatchery, then the farmers get the fish in different forms, and they grow the fish and then sell it to the market. So the first question, why do we need different products? Do we need different products? The question probably you might think, okay, why is GenoMar creating this difficulty? So why just not have one GenoMar rather than having GenoMar 250, GenoMar Strong, or different brands from GenoMar? So let me go through our history. So with these changes in the product portfolio over time, so if we think in terms of years, so before 2021, we only had one product, GenoMar Supreme Tilapia. So the product strategy was one product. Then from 2021 onwards, so we said, okay, no, one product, it does not fit all the zoos. One size does not fit all. So let's divide it into two products. So GenoMar Gen. So we divided this into GenoMar Gen and GenoMar Strong. So we launched GenoMar Strong as a Streptococcus resistant tilapia, primarily focused on Streptococcus diseases for tilapia farmers. And then we had the GenoMar Gen for the growth. So two products. And 2024 onwards, okay, we said that, okay, these two products is also not sufficient because we are present in multiple markets. So it's better to have multiple products. So now the GenoMar Gen is divided into GenoMar 1000 and GenoMar 250. The numbers here represent 250 is for 250 grams. So the fish, the farmers can harvest the fish up to 250 to 300 grams. And 1000 is for 1 kilo or 1000 grams. So the farmers choose GenoMar 1000 if they want to harvest the fish 800 grams and above. And then the GenoMar Strong. So initially, GenoMar Strong was just the Streptococcus resistant tilapia. Then we included more diseases in this product. So currently, it's primarily focused for Streptococcus resistant, but also it is also resistant for a few other bacterial infections. So now we have 3 products. And in the future, probably, we will have 4 or more products, depending on the markets and where we go in the market. And then some basic the science behind it. So in another level, so the breeding strategy to create the product. So we have the breeding strategy. So this has also changed over time. So until 2021 and 2023, we had the balanced nucleus. That is, we used to select 50% for the growth and 50% for the survival. Since 2023, we have divided, we are now into the breeding lines, like they do it in the pigs and the poultry, where we have different breeding lines, majorly focused for a particular trait that we want to get the product of. So then we went to the breeding lines, and then again, the technologies, with the advancement of technology, we have incorporated different technologies in our breeding nucleus. So previously, until generation 2021, or before 2021, year 2021, we had only pedigree-based selection, but now we do the genomic selection, where we use the DNA information of the fish and implement it into the classical breeding design. So this is not gene editing, this is just the advancement of technology. Just if someone is thinking about gene editing, it's not gene editing. So to summarize this, the move towards complexity and specialization was driven by, because the first thing is attend complexities in the market. So we are present in multiple markets, and then one size does not fit all. The need for the Filipino farmers is the fish, they grow faster and survive better until 250 to 300 grams, because that's the marketable size. Whereas for Vietnamese market, this is not the case, because they want to grow the fish up to 1 kilo and have more fillet, or focus on growth, survival, and fillet yield. So to attend these complexities of the market, we have divided our products into different products. And then again, thinking from the scientific perspective, we want to maximize the genetic and economic gains in different segments. By doing the breeding lines in genomic selection and different products, we have been achieving that. And then again, there are negative correlation between traits, because if we want to improve in one trait, then it hampers the other trait. Or if we want to improve both of these traits together, then the progress becomes slower. So to overcome the limitations of this negative correlation, we are saying, okay, this will be focused on this will be focused on this, and this market, and then whatever the market demands, then either we cross those or we sell them separately. So this is how the product strategy over time. So I'm trying to show what have these new innovations have helped us. So in the x-axis here, you see the generation number. So I use the generation 22 as the best generation. And in the y-axis, we have this relative increase in weight at 250 grams. So this is for GenoMar 250 fish, or the fish sold in the Filipino market. So until previously, from generation 22 to generation 27, we used to use the pedigree-based selection and the balanced nucleus. So the average improvement per generation was 2.5% increased growth per generation. And then we improved, then we went to the genomic selection. Then this improved our genetic gain. So from 2.5 to we went to 3.7% increased growth per generation. And after generation 30, we said, okay, let's forget the balanced nucleus and let's go to the line breeding. And now, on an average, we are getting the 8.7% increased growth per generation. So this all shows that our new innovations have more than tripled the rate of genetic gain for growth in the GenoMar breeding program. So every generation, the product is becoming better and better. Let's say the fish used to weigh 100 grams. Then with these technologies, so it was 2.5%, that is 2.5 gram increment in every generation. So generation 23, it would be 102.5. So again, 2.5 increase, it was like that. So whereas with this now, if it was 100, then the next generation becomes 108.7 gram. So this is the increased triple rate. And if we think about this at 10 generations, then it's a big changes in the improvement. Ultimately, the product is becoming better and better. The new products are becoming better and better and faster. So when I say the breeding line, so now how do we create a product? So in our breeding nucleus or the R&D facilities, we have different populations of our tilapia. So the GenoMar tilapia are also different populations, and different populations are selected differently. So let's say that for the growth, so the primary focus is we select the fish that grows faster. And for the survival, so primary focus is the fish that survives more. And the reproduction, let's say the C is reproduction, so it's more reproduction. When I say more, it's not 100%. Let's say it might be 60, it might be 70, different in different population percentage of the trait. Then we go to the multiplication phase. So we have these grandparents, and then the breeders are now the male lines and the female lines. And all the populations here do not contribute to the male line, and all the populations here do not contribute to the female lines. So A and B contribute to the male line, and C contributes to the female line. And then we ship these to our hatcheries, and we tell our hatcheries, okay, we have this male line, so please use only the males from the male lines to create the commercial fingerlings. And then we have this female line, so please use only the females from these female lines to create the new generation. So the males from these lines and the females from these lines are crossed or mated in the hatcheries to create the commercial fingerlings. And then the commercial fingerlings are then sold to the farmers. So this is how we create a product. And to go a little bit into detail, so how many percentage of the gene is contributed to the final commercial product? So we have line A, line B, line C. And let's go to the line A. So the females from line A and the males from the line A and the females from line B are mated and crossed together to create these AB breeders for hatcheries. And in the line C, males from this line and females from these lines are crossed together, the females from females for the hatcheries. And in the hatcheries, again, as I said previously, so the males from these and females from these are crossed to create the product. So if we think of this, so 25% of the gene is here, from line B 25% of the gene, and from line C 50% of the gene are in this commercial product. And then this is then sold to the farmers. So we use different technologies. We use, again, we update our products every few generations. So this is an example of our GenoMar Strong. So what different technologies were used in different generations of our products. So if I have to summarize our products, characteristics, and then which is suitable for what. So we have a GenoMar Strong. So the characteristic is highest possible resistance to key tilapia disease and overall rusticity. And again, if you think about growth, the growth is already there because this is started from generation 30. So we started from generation 30. So until generation 30, the growth was already there. So the growth component is also there. It's in addition, it's the highest possible resistance to key tilapia disease and overall rusticity. And it's until now, it's we have the two market called table fish market and medium large size fish market. So the table fish market is where the farmers sell 250 to 300 grams of fish. And the medium or large size fish market is the market where the farmers grow the fish to 800 grams or more. So yes, currently it's available in Asia for both table fish and large size fish market. And when I say Asia, it's 3 different countries. So Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam. And then GenoMar 250. So GenoMar 250 is fastest possible growth to 250 gram without compromising welfare. And then again, this market is currently in Asia and primarily focused in Philippines, if I have to be exact. And then GenoMar 1000. The characteristic is fastest possible growth to 1 kilo with high fillet yield without compromising welfare. And currently, since this is for 1 kilo market, so it's not for table fish, so it's for Asia and Latin America. It's Malaysia and Vietnam in Asia, and then Brazil and Colombia in Latin America. And we have another brand, AquaBell, which I'm not going into details here, for Latin American market. So these are our products, major products, and the characteristics, and which market which they are tailored to. So GenoMar Strong, just a bit why different products. So this is also why we have multiple product strategy. So GenoMar Strong, I am giving an example of GenoMar Strong because I saw the history. So why is it important? Because we did some trials in the Philippines. We collected data from the farmers, and we saw that with the increase in survival with our GenoMar strain, the profit also increased for the farmers. So we see that the conclusion was farmer can get an additional 1.29% profit with every 1% increase in the final survival from 65 to 85% in the Philippines. So this shows that, okay, currently we have a product, let's say, which the survival at harvest is around 65 grams. So if we increase only 1%, so if we can provide the farmers with the product which can survive 66%, with the same management, then this gives them 1.29% net profit. And imagine if we can give them the product which has 10% higher survival, then it's 12.9% net profit or more. So this happens like this when they go from 65 to 80%, 65 to 85%. And then we created the product, GenoMar Strong. The first trial we did in the laboratory trial, and we said, okay, we have created a product, but will it deliver to the farmers? Then the first thing was we did the laboratory trial, where the same growth of fish, where same fish, tagged fish, were then infected with the bacteria, and we checked the cumulative mortality. So the dark red is Streptococcus resistant tilapia, and then the light one is the non-selected tilapia, non-resistant tilapia. And then the mortality was lower for Streptococcus resistant tilapia. We're using different challenge models, how we can infect the bacteria to the fish. So we saw that on the relative percentage survival was 42% using IP challenge model and 25% using cohort challenge model. So what does the relative percentage survival means? So means that if you have an infection of Streptococcus in your farm and 100 fish from non-selected tilapia survive that infection, for the cohort challenge model, 125 fish will survive that infection, or 142 fish using this challenge model will survive that Streptococcus infections. So this was based on the laboratory trial, but then the big question was, will it also be seen in the commercial farms? Because the lab and farms, they might be different. And then what we did was we did it in Malaysia, where we pit tagged the fish when they were around 10 to 12 grams, and then we growed them together in the cages. And then the mortality was collected every day from those cages. And then we saw that the pattern of mortality here is, okay, dark red is again the Streptococcus resistant tilapia, and then the light red is non-selected tilapia. We saw that the mortality curve was lower for Streptococcus resistant tilapia compared to non-selected tilapia. And then if we divide it into the relative percentage survival, so it was around 32%. So if 100 fish from non-selected tilapia survive the infection or harvest in these conditions, then the 132 of the Streptococcus resistant tilapia will survive that infection in the same conditions. And then again, we did some economic analysis to show that will it make sense for farmers to pay more for these products or to have these products. So we did that, and then we saw that farmers were found to profit on an average of an extra $0.07 to $0.075 per kg of biomass harvested, and that none of the possible outcomes are negative, suggesting that the extra profit using streptoresistant tilapia was in all the scenarios. So if the farmers have streptococcosis outbreaks in their farms, so having streptococcosis tilapia in the farms, though it might cost a little bit more, if GenoMar is strong in their farm, eudomytonitis amicos will always be profitable for the farmers. So this is one of the reasons why we are having different products. So yeah, so different product strategy, and then another question. So why to use genetically superior fingerlings? So you can get fingerlings from different places in the markets, and then you can get fingerlings from backyard hatcheries where you don't know any genetics, and you can get fingerlings from different suppliers which are selling the genetics of different brands. Then the price might be different, different things might be different. Your easiness to get the fingerlings might be different. You might have relationship with the suppliers. So there are various reasons why the farmers choose different brands or different fingerlings. Or no, someone doesn't care. Getting a fingerling is fine. It doesn't matter where the fish comes from, the fingerlings comes from. So that might be some perspective of some farmers. But does it pay better, or will it make more profit to have genetically superior fingerlings in your harvest? So that's another question I would like to answer here. So here, this is a trial we did in Brazil, where we compared our product GenoMar 1000 versus the local commercial strain for survival. So let's use the trait as survival. So the dark green is GenoMar 1000, and local commercial strain is the light blue, and then this is the yolk shack stage. So let's say that 10 fish, 10 yolk shacks finger fries from GenoMar 1000 and local commercial strain are kept together, goes to hatchery on day 0. And we saw that until the juvenile stage, 5 of these survive until day 71, and for the local commercial strain in Brazil, only 3 of them survived. So if we think this, so survival in hatchery was 72% higher for GenoMar tilapia compared to the local strain. And then let's go down to the further stage. So let's go up to the grow out in cages. So we have day 0 as starting at the day 0 after this phase to cages phase, and then we go into until day 140. And then grow out 1, grow out 2, and grow out 3. So here we started with 10 yolk sacks, and we ended with 5, on an average 5 GenoMar 1000 tilapia. So for the local commercial strain in Brazil, so we started with 10 and we ended with only 2. And then again, in the grow out cages, we saw that the risk of death during grow out was 49% lower for GenoMar tilapia compared to the local strain. So to summarize this experiment, so survival in hatchery, as I said, 72% was higher for GenoMar tilapia compared to the local strain. And if we think about growth in ponds and cages, so the growth was 34% faster for GenoMar tilapia compared to the local strain. And again, the uniformity of the products. So 23% more from uniform body weight for GenoMar tilapia. So we compared GenoMar tilapia and then the local strain, local commercial strain in Brazil, and we saw that the GenoMar tilapia outperformed the local commercial strain for survival, for growth, and uniformity. And then, yes, this is what you might miss if you are not buying the premium genetics. And some comparison of performance in Brazil. Again, we did some comparison trial to summarize. So in this trial, so we see here, this was the red, the orange is the GenoMar Supreme Tilapia Generation 24. And this was 14, and these were the gift 1 and gift 2. So this is the paper published also. And then we saw that the growth of GenoMar Supreme Tilapia 24 was 49% higher compared to other products. And then the survival or the feed conversion ratio, because we see here was the feed efficiency was 28% higher for GenoMar Supreme Tilapia Generation 24 in these trials. Why should one invest in better genetics? Ultimately, it's the profitability of the farmer that matters. And then another question, I showed previously that every 2 or 3 generations, we have latest generation of the products. So why to buy latest generation of fingerlings? So this is a comparison trial we did in 2021 in Malaysia, where we compared between 2 contemporary generations. So if you see this is dark green is the new product, and then the light green was the old product. And we did a comparison trial where we pit tagged the fish at around 10 to 15 gram and grew them together until 1 kilo or 1.2 kilo. So they were harvested at around 1250 gram or 1.2 kilo. So both of them got the same management practice, same environment, so everything was same. The only difference was the genetics or the version of the product. And then if we see the specific growth rate, so it was 3.83% better for the new product compared to the old generation of the product. And the body weight at harvest when it was 1250 gram. So the new generations of the product were 43 grams heavier than the older generations of the product. Imagine you are stocking 100,000 fish. You are harvesting 100,000 fish from a cage. And then if you had older generation of the product, on an average, each fish would be 43 gram lighter than the new generation of product at the same day of culture. So just replacing the older generation with the newer generation of fingerlings, you are getting 43 gram heavier heavy fish for each fish, just replacing the genetics. All the management, day of culture, and everything is the same. And if it's multiplied by 100,000 harvested fish, then that becomes a huge number. And then fillet yield, also the new generations had 1.91% difference, because fillet yield is measured differently in different countries. So different ways of measuring fillet yield, so that the values on an average was around 1.5 to 1.95% increased fillet yield using the new generation of the product. Not only the growth production traits, fillet yield, so the new generations had higher survival, higher feed efficiency, and higher uniformity. So if we think about the overall survival, the new generations, so this is the mortality. So lower mortality for the new generation of the product, meaning higher survival. So if we think about the survival, so 7.83% is higher survival for the new generation. And then feed efficiency, the feed conversion ratio. So feed conversion ratio, it was lower the feed conversion ratio, higher the feed efficiency. So it's again down here. So it was 2.5% is higher feed efficiency. And then uniformity. So we measured this as the coefficient of variance. So there was less variation between the fish. So they were highly uniform. So the new generations of the fish were 10.33% more uniform compared to the previous generation of the same product. So what I wanted to show from here is just replacing, going for the new generation of the product compared to the old generation, you are getting more benefit for in terms of growth, in terms of fillet yield, in terms of survival, in terms of feed efficiency, in terms of uniformity, all those traits that has been selected for. So yes, whenever available, please try to go for the new generations of the products. And another comparison trial, what we are doing here, so it's for this GenoMar Strong. So we are doing a comparison trial, so it is an ongoing trial here. So again, it's a comparison trial where we are pit tagging the fish together and then keeping them together in the same environment. So if you see this, our current Strong product, on an average, so it starts from 0.02 gram here when they were 190 grams. So the future Strong product will be around 202 grams. So you will gain 12 grams just by replacing the generation of the fingerlings. And then survival also, the new generations of the fingerlings. So the survival, future Strong product. So if the current Strong product, at least until here, is 83.8% survival, so the future Strong product will have higher survival, 87.2%, which is around 3.4% better survival. So this is the ongoing trial, and we are showing that, okay, the new generations will be better for the performance. So this is the GenoMar Strong, so it's more about the survival and growth. Both are being improved every generation. So the concluding slide. So GenoMar is available in the market as a premium genetics brand with documented superiority. So whatever we go, we document it. So documented superiority in growth, survival, feed conversion ratio, and fillet yield compared to major competitor brands in the market. And our strategic approach to selective breeding with genomics and crossbreeding in Nile tilapia reflects a commitment to continuous innovations and maximizing genetic gain. And this all strategy fits perfectly into the concept of precision breeding, strategic use of breeding lines, and the creation of distinct products tailored to market demands that are integral components of our success. And as we navigate the complexities of tilapia aquaculture, we aim to continue leading the way in innovative and cost-efficient breeding practices, ensuring sustainable growth and prosperity for the farmers worldwide. So ultimately, we want GenoMar tilapia to be synonymous to aquatic chicken. So these are few of the references which can be used for the reading materials. So not only the technical papers, since last 3-4 years, we have been publishing lots of popular sciences. So it's a semi-technical paper, so that a little bit common farmers can also understand this. And then this probably has been translated to the local languages. So please contact your sales representative in your country if you are interested in these also, so they can make it available to you. If you want to know more about so this paper shows 30 years of tilapia breeding program. So what we have done in the 30 years, so different technologies used, and then why we are using these latest technologies, and what will be the effect, and how we are trying to shape the future of the tilapia industry through genetics. Yes, that was all from my side. Thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Rajesh, for very informative answers, or a presentation right over there, actually. Speaking of answers, here we go. We're going to get some. We're going to make way for some questions, of course. We invite you to submit your questions via the chat function. Yes, you heard that right. You may post your questions via the chat function. Go ahead and do it now. Okay, we found one over here. Hello and good afternoon, Doctor. Here goes our question coming in from Vietnam. Hello, yes. The question goes, is the GenoMar strong tilapia strain specifically bred for disease resistance? If so, which specific disease does it demonstrate resistance against?
Yes, we have developed GenoMar strong tilapia for the resistance against different bacterial diseases in tilapia. Initially, it started with Streptococcus resistance only, but now it has grown into resistance to Streptococcosis, resistance to Flavobacterium, resistance to Aeromonas, and general survivability in the stress condition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh, for very informative answers, or a presentation right over there, actually. Speaking of answers, here we go. We're going to get some. We're going to make way for some questions, of course. We invite you to submit your questions via the chat function. Yes, you heard that right. You may post your questions via the chat function. Go ahead and do it now. Okay, we found one over here. Hello and good afternoon, Doctor. Here goes our question coming in from Vietnam. Hello, yes. The question goes, is the GenoMar strong tilapia strain specifically bred for disease resistance? If so, which specific disease does it demonstrate resistance against?
Yes, we have developed GenoMar strong tilapia for the resistance against different bacterial diseases in tilapia. Initially, it started with Streptococcus resistance only, but now it has grown into resistance to Streptococcosis, resistance to Flavobacterium, resistance to Aeromonas, and general survivability in the stress condition.
All right, here goes another of our questions. Could you provide specific performance data for GenoMar tilapia? For example, GenoMar 1000 or other relevant strains, cultured in Vietnam under conditions of salinity below 10 ppt and a stocking density of 10 fish per square meter? We are particularly interested in the following over here. Culture period actually from 10,000 fish per kilogram fingerlings to 1 kilogram market size, or feed conversion ratio, survival rate, also fillet yield ratio?
Yes, again, the question is too vague here. Again, these all parameters depend on your management practice, different management practice. But what we have seen in Vietnam is, if I have to be general, for specific to one place, probably it's better to contact the sales representative. But if I have to summarize in a vague way, we have seen farmers harvesting 1 kilo tilapia in Vietnam in around 90 days to 110 days. And then again, the feed conversion ratio varies depending on the season, depending on survival and other things. And we have seen the feed conversion ratio from 1.1 to 1.3, even 1.4. Again, depends on where, which place, and then how which feed is fed. And again, for the feed conversion ratio, yes, and the survival rate depends on the season, depends on your management practices and other things, and the survival rate. Again, for GenoMar 1000, we have seen ranging from 60% to 80%, sometimes 80 to 90% also. And then fillet yield again is measured differently. So when you say fillet yield, it's with the skin or without skin. So if I have to say with skin, then getting 45% of fillet yield with skin is not that abnormal. So again, if you want to have a specific values for your specific area, then please contact the sales representative in your country.
Okay, another of our questions go like this. Is GenoMar considering offering vaccinated fingerlings to reduce disease outbreaks for your customers? If the answer is yes, can you share more about it, please?
Well, GenoMar is a breeding company, and obviously we believe in genetics. Primarily, I have to say that we want to increase the inherent resistance of the fingerling, meaning we will provide the fingerlings which have the resistance to disease in their genes. That is, you don't need to vaccinate the fingerling. Again, we have done some trial where we have seen that, okay, there is a genetic component, but there is a vaccination. And if you use only the genetics without vaccination, then the survival is X. And if you don't use the genetics and only vaccine, and the survival is Y. And if you use both, then it's the survival is X plus Y. Yes, so of course, the vaccination helps in addition to the genetics, but what we want to do is use the genetics, and the farmer have to do nothing to prevent against the diseases. And if we can't think about vaccines, then in some countries we are offering vaccination to the juveniles. We are selling vaccinated juveniles, and in some countries or in some markets we are not selling the vaccinated juveniles. So this will depend on the country and the strategy of and the product, the demand of the product.
Wow, that is wonderful to know. You know, there's no need for vaccination. Now we got here a question from Singapore. How many days does it take for GenoMar Strong to grow to 300 grams from a 20-gram fingerling?
Well, thank you for the question. Again, depends on when I say tilapia, it depends on the managemental practices. If it's in the ponds or it's in the cages, and which country, because different countries have their own managemental practice. So let me give an example in Philippines. It might differ in the Singapore, depending on various managemental practices, feeding practices, and the culture practices, quality of the water, temperature. But in Philippines, rather than from 20 grams, if I have to say from 0.4 grams, our products like GenoMar 250 and GenoMar Strong reach 250 to 300 grams in about 100 to 110 days on an average.
Now here goes a question coming in from the Philippines. In the Philippines, how much is the fingerlings per piece for GenoMar 250 and GenoMar Strong?
Well, I don't exactly have the numbers. Please contact our sales representative in the Philippines for the price.
Okay, let's squeeze in another question over here. What is the salinity range of GenoMar Strong?
Again, salinity is a different thing. So different people have different way of telling salinity. So what is salinity? So people say that some people even consider 30 ppt as a salinity in some countries, whereas in some countries even 15 ppt has been called salinity. GenoMar is Nile tilapia, so it's freshwater tilapia. It's more for the freshwater fish, but it can handle the salinity, and we have seen people growing GenoMar tilapia in until 18 to 24 ppt. Again, the growth, the higher the salinity level, the growth reduces.
Okay, this time we're asking, what is the future potential for black or brackish water tilapia culture in sea cages and former shrimp ponds?
Well, this is a difficult question to answer. So what is the future? It's very difficult to see to say it like that. But yes, we are trying to work to increase the salinity level, and then the tolerance and the growth of the tilapia in this kind of environments. And we see that in the future, probably there will be more culture of tilapia or saline strain of tilapia in this environment.
Okay, now we have room for 2 more questions. Here goes second to the last. Beyond its current selective breeding programs, what is GenoMar's stance or future strategy regarding advanced genetic technologies such as gene editing or GMO for fish in aquaculture?
Yes, so what I was talking about was gene editing. So yes, we don't use any gene editing at present, but we are looking at the regulations and how it is moving forward, and if it can benefit the society and the products and all the industry in the future, we are open for it, but based on the regulations of the country, of course.
All right, here goes the last of our questions, at least for the moment, because of our limited time over here for now. Here goes a question. Does GenoMar plan to do genetics for red tilapia?
We have a saying, never say no to anything. So we don't know. We are looking into it. We might be doing something in the future, but at present, we don't have any red tilapia breeding program. Again, we say no to no. So yes, in the future, who knows?
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajesh, and thank you for all of those who participated with their questions. We now proceed to our final presentation on ultrasonography application to achieve premier breeding performance of tilapia breeders. And to shed light on this very important subject, we are honored to welcome Dr. Surachetpong, Associate Professor at Ksetsart University in Thailand, specializing in veterinary medicine, microbiology, and immunology. He holds a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree with honors from Chulalongkorn University, a Master of Science in Pathobiology from the University of Arizona, and a PhD in Immunology from the University of California, Davis. It is truly a privilege to have him share his expertise with us today. Please join us as we formally welcome Dr. Surachetpong to deliver his presentation.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. And my name is Surachetpong from Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Ksetsart University. So today I'm excited to share the work on the application of ultrasonography as a non-invasive techniques to identify sex and to assess reproductive performance in Nile tilapia. So this project has been done together with my colleagues, Dr. Ksetsart and Dr. Thachakon Lertwanakan. So let's go with the detail of the presentations. So tilapia, as we all know, that is a globally important aquaculture species. Is produced in more than 45 countries around the world and increasingly recognized as a key contributor for food securities, especially in low and middle income countries. It has been a species that grow very rapidly, very hard and difficult, very easy to adapt to many culture systems. And this is popular in a lot of farmers. And according to the FAO statistics in 2023, the global production and value of tilapia is exceeding $9 billion globally. So improvement how we manage the fish and how we breed tilapia and improve the genetic breeding program is very important. And this will make a meaningful difference to not only just for production, but also for sustainability and food security for the world populations. So this slide giving you that overview and idea of the value chain of tilapia production. And as you can see, it's involved a lot of process. And what I want to highlight is hatchery and broodstocks is important stage. And this is the point in the production cycle where we have to measure and to acquire the right male and female ratios, and we want to mature and healthy broodstock, and this is critical for a successful breeding program and for the whole value chain. So any mistake or error in sexing or reproductive management can affect the fly output and estimation of the growth performance and genetic quality of the fish. So improving accuracies of the sex ratios and management of the reproductive performance of the populations throughout the entire farming process is very important. So the key challenge in blue stock management is getting how we get the sex ratio correctly. For tilapia, a typical ratio between male and female is between 1 to 2 to or up to 4 females. So 1 male to 4 females is, or 2 to 4 females is ideal for successful performance of reproductions. So traditionally, sexing is done by manually inspecting the external genitalia of the fish, but it has some limitation. It's quite subjective and depend on the examiner experience and can be sometimes stressful and not a good welfare for the fish. So that's why there's a growing need for a more practical, accurate, non-invasive method that can use to support a better blue stock management and that well for the animal welfare as well. So this is showing some traditional method of how we identify the sex of the fish. So we use exam the genital papilla to tell the differentiation between the male and female fish. So for the male, typically have 2 openings, as you can see, the anus and the urogenital pore. So for the females, it actually has 3 openings and it's containing the anus, the genital pore, and the urinary pore. So it sounds quite straightforward, but in practice, especially with the young and small fish, is quite difficult. So to distinguish between these 2 sex. So the accuracy really depends on the skills and experience of the worker or a person that doing these examinations. So even if the external monitoring of the genitalia is quite broadly used and is quite simple, it's challenging for a large scale hatchery to given the consistency of the examination, especially it depends on the person that investigating that. So why consider application of new techniques like ultrasound? So the concept is that ultrasound use a high frequency sound wave to create a real-time imaging of internal organs. And normally you cannot see what inside, but using these techniques, you can actually identify the stages and also the morphology of the internal organs. It has been well-established tools and used in many veterinary medicine applications, like it has been used for non-invasive to monitor small animals, reproductive organs like cats and dogs. Also application in livestock like cattle, horses, or pig as well. So for aquatic animals, including fish, more recently, the ultrasonography has been applied for similar purpose, and because it's offer a way to assess the gonads and reproductive health of the fish without any harming to the animals, and you don't need to kill them, of course. So that gives a quite interesting application and point of views to apply the ultrasounds to aquatic animal like fish. So ultrasound has been already successfully applied in several species of fish to assess reproductive organs and to investigate the maturity of these organs. For example, in sturgeons, cod, Shinhuan taimen, and salmons, it has been used to identify sex and monitor gonad development. So these provide to help hatcheries and to manage the spawnings for the blue stocks more effectively. And this example actually showed that ultrasound work well in the fish. So the next question we ask whether what we can use that to the same approach in tilapia. And some example to show that ultrasound has been used not only to just identify the sex of the animal, but also used to assess the status of the fish, like how when they're gonna spawn and the maturity stage of the animals, especially in the females. So like you can see here, this is an example of research showing that how the ultrasound apply in several species of fish. And the question, like I mentioned, how would we apply it to tilapia as well? So the question is the importance of ultrasounds. One really good example of this is how they use this to the application in salmons. And in recent years, we know that salmon is a high value species and the root stock is quite important, and we need to assess whether when they give will ready for spawning. And you can see in the slide here, this is an example of the picture of the image generating from the ultrasound. You can see the structure of the ovaries and the location of that. So you don't need to kill the fish. You can just put the probe in on the skin of the fish, and then you can see the image that real time generating after you put the probe in. And this is giving a clear picture of what the ovaries or maybe the testes look like. You don't need to harm the fish as well. So that's the question is whether we can apply this for tilapia. And in our study, we focus on three main objectives. First, we want to see if the ultrasound could be used to accurately identify then differentiate between the male and female tilapia. And secondly, we want to compare the performance of the ultrasound and the monosex identifications by looking at the outside, the genitalia of the fish. And thirdly, we want to validate all of these findings to compare between the ultrasound image and necropsy and histologies, just to be sure that what we're seeing on the image on the screen is actually what was actually inside the fish, either whether they are male and female. So we work with 25 adult tilapia. We acquire them from a commercial hatchery. The size of the fish range between 230 grams up to 1,280 grams. So before we initially start the experiment, we take 2 fish to screen to make sure that they are quite healthy and they don't have any disease. That totally left us to 23 fish for the actual studies. So all the animal handling and protocols actually follow the animal welfare standards, and it has been approved by the ethics committees. And before we examine the fish, we fasted them for 24 hours and also use clove oil to anesthetize them to reduce the stress of the fish. So we apply to veterinary ultrasound machine, and this is has been used in small animals hospitals, but actually there's quite application suitable for fish as well. So both equipment come with the probe that operating at 6.6 to 13 megahertz, and the depth was set between 35 and 40 millimeter, with the gain adjusted to 65 to 80%. So this will give us the clear views of the reproductive organs. So the settings work very well for tilapia, and is applied to the size, like I mentioned, from 200 to up to 1 kilogram and 200 range. So this similar step has been successfully applied in species like sturgeon and salmon before, and we show that this also works well with tilapia. So I like to mention a bit that even we use a benchtop system, is actually there are now portable ultrasound units that are available for application for fish like salmon, and of course this can be used to tilapia. So during the procedure of getting the image, we place the fish in what we call right lateral recumbency. So you see the front of the fish is on your left side, and on the wet towel we keep them so that the fish are quite stable and to minimize the stress and keep them moisture. So the probe was positioned in two ways. So one is we call on the longitudinal view, and the other one is a transverse view. So for longitudinal view, we position the probe from the pectoral fin down toward the anal fin, while you see the picture I give you in the following slide. For the transverse view, you get the image of the cutting between by these, so that this both position will give you a clear idea of how the ovary and testes look like. So I'd like to mention a bit that the whole process of these take less than 2 minutes per fish, and this makes it quite practical for using in the farm. So after we scan using the ultrasound, we will humanly euthanize the fish to confirm whether they are male or female. So you open the fish and then examine the internal organs, especially the reproductive organs. So, and then we also collect the gonad for gross examinations and measure their weight, calculate the gonadosomatic index or GSIs. This is a standard way to give the idea of the reproductive profile of the fish. And we also process the tissue for histology using H&E staining. That will give us the idea of the cellular structure of the ovaries and testes and confirm the maturity state of the fish as well. So these are histologies, gross examination, like I mentioned earlier. It's not only validated the ultrasound image, but also give us the idea what the inside the fish look like when we see the image from the ultrasound. So in the ultrasound image, so the mature female that are ready to spawn show very distinct ovary. So in the longitudinal view, you can see a cluster of light gray granules. These are the developing oocysts, and the ovary appear brighter than the liver next to it. So when we switch to the transverse view, you notice a two distinct oval-shaped ovary like here. Compared to the male testes, as you can see, appear to be a long gray tube running along the body in the longitudinal scan. But in the transverse view, you see the testes appear in the picture like this. So even it's quite difficult to differentiate the testes, but for the female, the ovary, you can see very distinctive observations in the both the longitudinal and transverse image. So I want to show two videos to show the two female ovaries in the taken by the ultrasound image. So on the first one, you can see a cluster of small light gray granules. These are developing oocysts, and the ovary appear more echogenic or brighter than the surrounding tissue, even compared with the liver, which help there to identify the ovary. Okay, and the other one you can see when you move the probe again, you can start to see the ovary coming, and this is quite a well-developed ovary. You can distinguish them from the other tissue quite easy. In this fish, though, let me play the video again so that you get an idea of the ovary look like. So in this fish, the ovary is very well developed, and the brightness and granularities of the eggs make it easy to distinguish from the other internal organs. So we also compare the stage of the size of the fish, the stage of the ovaries, and also the histology section. As you can see, in a bigger fish, like above 400 grams, it's much easier to identify the ovary on the ultrasound image, and also a confirmation with the histology is confirmed the well-developed eggs. So the gonadosomatic index of the females can vary between 0.09 up to 4.39. And the higher the GSI, the more developed the ovary. And these match what we saw in the ultrasound scan with the larger, brighter ovaries and more distinct ganu in fish with the higher GSI, like you can see in the middle of the slide here. But for the smaller fish, like less than 400 grams, is a bit tricky to see because the ovary may be not well developed, and that gives us a very small GSI value as well. So this is a picture of the male fish. You can see in the larger above 400 grams is much more accurate to identify because the GSI can be quite bigger than the smaller fish. So the GSI of the male is ranged between 0.01 up to 0.88. So you can see a lot less than the females. And the tests are smooth, uniform gray tubes and in the longitudinal scan. But as we mentioned earlier, for the smaller fish, it's quite difficult to differentiate. And this is a comparison between the ultrasounds and manual sexing method. Interestingly, the ultrasound give us a correctly identify the sex of the fish in this study from 22 out of 23 fish, and that gives us 95% accuracies. In comparison, for the manual sexings, based on external genitalia, we got 20 out of 23 correct. That only gives like 87%. Even it's not much different, but you can see most of the error actually happening in the fish under 500 grams, like you can see the red one and the yellow one that we identify the sex of the animal. And what I like to highlight is this is usually happening for a male, smaller male fish. So the key finding and advantage of the application of ultrasound for sex mode identification and reproductive assessment is that first, it's quite easy and fast to scan, and you give less than 2 minutes. Mostly in many cases, you can see the gonad within 30 seconds. Secondly, this is a non-invasive, which means that there is no need to cut or open the fish, and that you can save this valuable broodstock and use that for produce the flies. And thirdly, it's quite reliable, and they give us like 95% accuracy, only one fish missing. So you can get a clear image on that. However, like any techniques, there's some limitations. So the main challenge of this is that to detect the test is especially